going to learn about when I has the long E sound. When I is used before another vowel, it usually has the long E sound. Before we get to that, we need to review a few things from Level 7, Lesson 2. If you have IE together in the middle of a word, it usually has a long E sound, like in field. C followed by the E is going to have its soft sound of S. So peace, this TH will have the sound of th. Thief, grief, tear, view, yield, and diesel. When you have IE at the end of a word, if it's a short word, it will have the long I sound, like in pie and pies, lie and lies, die and dies. If it's at the end of a longer word, try the long E sound. O in this word will have the sound. So we have cookie and cookies, OA says O, goalie and goalies. If you have a root word that ends in a Y, when you add a suffix that starts with another vowel, the Y will change to an I. So here we have the root word cry. So when we add the suffix ES, the Y changes to an I. This I and this I will keep the same long I sound that the root had. So we have cry, cries, and cried. Deny, denies, and denied. Try, tries, and tried. Now let's get to our new material. Here we have the root words. Here we're adding the suffix ER and the suffix EST. Here's our root funny. Y at the end of a longer word usually has a long E sound. When we want to say that something is more funny than something else, we say it's funnier, and the Y changes to an I, but it keeps the long E sound that it had in the root. So we have funny, funnier, funniest. This EA is going to use its most common sound of E, and the S will have the Z sound. Easy, easier, easiest. In this lesson, all of the underlined vowels will have their long sound. If you want to understand why that is, watch the videos in my syllable division boot camps. So here we have crazy, crazier, craziest. All three of these words had Y at the end having the long E sound, which it kept when we added the suffix. Here we have a short word ending in Y, which means we try the long I sound first, cry. So this root ends in a long I sound. So when we add the suffix ER, this I will keep the long I sound that the Y had. So we had cry and crier. Here are some more suffixes where I takes on a long E sound. We have eum. This C will have its soft sound of S because of the I. Calcium. All of these vowels are underlined and will have their long sound. Medium, premium, and stadium. Here is the suffix eus. OU usually has the sound ow, but when it's in a suffix, it takes on more of a short U sound. So this whole suffix is eus. So here we have curious, furious, serious, and obvious. IA at the end of a word usually has the sound of ia, but in a few words sounds more like ya, like in ammonia. In these three words, it has the clear ia sound. Anemia, insomnia. Insomnia is when you have trouble sleeping. Mania. When you have IA in the middle of a word, it can have the long I sound rather than the short I, like in liable. While this word by itself is able, when it's used as a suffix, the A schwas, or takes on a muffled sound that sounds more like a short U or a short I. So we don't say liable, we say liable, viable. Here are more words where the I has a clear long I sound. Bias, trial, liar, vile, dial. This G will have the soft sound of J because of the I, and the suffix ANT usually schwas, and instead of having a clear ant sound, sounds more like int or unt. Giant, diary. The Y at the end has the long E sound. Here are more suffixes where you have I in front of another O, but these suffixes all have the schwa sound. What that means is that rather than having an IO or EO sound here or an ES sound here, it sounds more like ul. The TI and the CI in these suffixes sound like sh. You could see my video about Latin suffixes for more information about that. So this suffix is shun. So here we have nation, potion, faction, and fraction. This suffix is shul. Partial, martial, remember AR says R, and spatial. This suffix is also shul. Special, crucial, glacial. Here's the suffix EAL. It's not a clear EAL song, but EAL, because AL as a suffix by itself takes on the muffled schwa sound of ul. So here we have trivial, medial, and serial. Here we have the root word deny, where the word ends in a Y, but it has a clear, long I sound. So when we add the suffix AL to the end, the Y changes to an I, and this I will keep the long I sound that the root had. So deny, denial. However, it's much more common for this suffix to be used after a word where the Y has a long E sound, like in colony. In this case, the I will keep the sound that the root had, which is a long E. So we have colony, colonial, family, familial. In other words, most of the time the suffix IAL sounds like eel, but it could sound like IL with a clear long I sound if the root ended in a long I sound. Here are some words ending in ION. In these two words, you have a clear I sound, lion and axion. The I sound in both of these words was a clear long I, but the O schwad and sounded more like a short U, lion, axion. When you have a word ending in LION, so not the word lion, but these are the last four letters, or ending in NION, it sounds more like yun, like an onion, union, minion, million, billion, and trillion. Notice that in these words, there's no clear sound from the I. Instead, the N or the L in front of it changes the I to sound more like a Y. Although most of the time IE in the middle of a word has the long E sound, there are some words where it splits into two vowel sounds. In these two words, the I takes on a clear long E sound, alien and Soviet. In these two words, the I keeps a long I sound, diet and client. Here are some words with IA in the middle rather than at the end, where the I has a clear long E sound. Piano, alias, avian, avian means bird, zodiac, AR says R, cardiac, ANT at the end of a longer word, usually schwas and sounds more like unt or int, deviant, radiant, ovarian, mediate, valiant, and variant. Here are some words with an IO and the I has a clear long E sound. Trio, AU says ah, audio, curio, folio, patio, polio, radio, OI says oi, opioid, and studio. Notice that most of the time when you see I and O together, it's at the end of the word. Let's review the suffixes where I usually has a clear long E sound. IER, IEST, IEM, IES, IAL, IO, and IA. In all of these, the I and the O schwa. Shun, shun, shull, and shull. If you see an I and an E together in the middle of a word, try the long E sound first, like in field. If that doesn't give you a word you recognize, then try splitting it and giving the I the long I sound, like in diet. But most of the time in the middle of a word, it will have the long E. If you see an I and an A together in the middle of a word, not at the end in a suffix, but in the middle, try the long I sound first, like in the word bias. If you don't recognize the word, then change the long I to a long E, like in zodiac.